What's going on, y'all? It is 2025. It is the 1st of January at the moment. I read 54 books in 2024, and I'm gonna rank them. I've already ranked them, but like I'm gonna tell y'all about it. So yes, I did rank all the books I read in 2024, and I am here to talk about it today. I do want to preface this by saying I gave out 7 5-stars this year, which is a lot. And I also only gave, I think, 2 1-stars, which is really good for me, and only a few 2-stars. So this was a really good reading year for me. I read mostly books I really enjoy this year. So none of the books on my, actually yes, some of the books on my list are horrible books, but like out of the 54 books I read, most of them are 3 stars and up. Let's just get into the rankings. Okay, let's start with the lowest. Starting at number 54, we got A Court of Silver Flame. I have ranted about this book enough. I'm moving on. Fuck this book. I'm not talking about it. Number 53, A Court of Frost and Starlight. The only reason why A Court of Frost and Starlight is above A Court of Silver Flames for me is because A Court of Frost and Starlight was short. They're equally bad, but A Court of Frost and Starlight was just shorter, so I didn't have to deal with it for as long. And you might be wondering, Tyler, how the fuck are you on the last 2 books of ACOTAR and you're rating them 1 star? At that point, you should know you don't like the series. Well, I do have a video where I read the series and I wasn't letting myself DNF them. So if you're wondering what those 2 books are doing in my 2024 reading, that video is why. Go check it out if you want. But forewarning, I was not happy in that video. So if you like positive content, don't watch it. Okay, number 52 is a book called Rapture. This just showed up on my shit, like on my Goodreads, and I was like, let me read this. I didn't know anything about it. I just read it. Like, I just needed a palate cleanse after the Sarah J Maas shit, so I was like, this shit's short, let me read it. It could be someone's thing. It definitely was not my thing at all, but I don't want to bash on it too hard because I think it is an indie author, so I'm not going to talk about it, but not my style, might be yours. There's like smut. I think I remember there being smut. There's queer characters, and it's pretty dark. So there's that. It was not my thing, but you know. Number 51, Hannibal Rising, which is the last book in the Hannibal series. I enjoyed the Hannibal series up until this book. Like, I was having so much fun with this series. This book was just so boring for me because I feel like Hannibal Lecter's backstory was so interesting, and just the execution of like a prequel like that was just not the best. Like, I found myself getting really bored and I wanted to move on. So Hannibal Rising was okay. No, actually, I think I gave that book like a 2-star. Hannibal Rising, number 51. Let's move on. Number 50, we got Shark Heart. I have talked about Shark Heart before. I think I talked about it in my book tag for 2024. Shark Heart, I thought I was gonna love because it's part of the genre where it's like a person turns into an animal, but it's all symbolic of like a struggle that most people or some people face in their life, and it just like really speaks to readers, but like it's really weird because the person turns into an animal. Shark Heart I thought was gonna be just like that, and it kind of was, but the messages that I was picking up on just were not my favorite. I can't say I enjoyed the writing. The characters were a little two-dimensional. Like, I feel like y'all think I'm a really negative person. I'm not. Once we get up there to the books I did like, I start talking really fondly of these books. I promise. But we're just in the lower ones. I promise I'm not this negative. We're gonna get into the books I really did love, and we're gonna talk about them, but we just gotta get past the bad ones. I'm sorry. Moving on, number 49. This one, some people are gonna be mad at me for, and I'm really nervous. Number 49, we got Dune. I'm not saying this is a badly crafted book, okay? I'm not saying if you like this book, I don't like you. I'm not saying if you like this book, you have bad taste. But personally, I was bored. I'm a character person, and Dune just had really two-dimensional characters, in my opinion. I like Jessica, but she was still two-dimensional. The world building was strong. The writing was strong. I can see why this is like a pillar in the sci-fi genre. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about my own book. It's okay, I'll talk about it at the end of the video. But if you like Dune, that's awesome. I can see how someone would give this a 5-star. I was just bored, so 2-star. This is when things start going up, so I'm gonna stop being so negative now. Number 48 is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I read this book because I rewatched the movie recently, and I was like, this is a really fucking good movie. I want to read the book now. The book is obviously written for children, so I'm not the audience for this book. I thought it was going to be at least a little bit atmospheric because the movie has this beautiful atmosphere around it. The soundtrack is amazing. I have the soundtrack on my reading playlist. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I rewatched it around Christmas time, wanted to read the book, read the book, and was like, how the fuck did they make such an amazing movie out of this? Because this is very vague. It is a children's book, as I've been saying, and it had very Christian themes, you could tell. So I can't remember if it was a review on Goodreads or if it was like a review somewhere else that I saw. Someone said picking up Narnia as a fantasy reader is like picking up an R.L. Stine book after reading Stephen King. That resonated with me because, yeah, this is like the introduction to fantasy. If you're like a child reading fantasy, this is what you're reading. But, you know, as someone who reads like high fantasy type stuff, it felt very introduction, very vanilla. Not a bad book. It's a good children's book, so there's that. But the movie is amazing, and you should watch the movie. If you want to know this story, just watch the movie. I feel like I'm more happy than this in my other videos. Also, I fell asleep with wet hair, so this front of my hair is like sticking up, and it's like making my forehead look ginormous. Wait, I kind of fixed it. Number 47, we got Legend of the Master. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The only reason why I've gotten into like authors like Nakajima is because of BSD, because I was obsessed with BSD when I was like 13. I haven't read it in a really long time because I felt like I started just feeling very disconnected from the fandom. I used to be super involved in the BSD fandom. Don't come for me, guys. The BSD fandom is really annoying. I had to leave that fandom. It was not good for my soul, so yeah. Goodbye, BSD. I haven't read it in a while just because, how do I put this in the best way possible? Because I feel like some people really did enjoy the arc, but I did not. Where, I think the last time I read a BSD chapter was when Chuya died. Or died. He didn't actually die, but he like died. Wait, how would I know that? I'm trying to remember what the last chapter I read was, but I genuinely do not remember what the last chapter I read was. That's beside the point. The only reason why I got into authors like this is because of that anime / manga. I read the manga. I barely watched the anime, but this was an amazing short story. Literally anyone can read this. I'm not going to be like, if you like blah, 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 read this. Or if you like blah, blah, blah. Like, no, just read this. It's good. And the only reason why it's so low on my list is because it's 19 pages long. I have like a bunch of notes in there. At the end, I wrote like an entire thing. I'll pick this up and reread it every once in a while because it's just that good. Number 46, we got Third Degree by James Patterson. Just a palate cleanser. I got this in a blind date with a book. I read it in a video. You know, the characters they're okay. They're subpar, okay? I haven't read anything else in the series, so that might be why I feel that way. Palate cleanse. Awesome. Number 45, this one I had to read for school. We got The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. This was the only book on the novel list that interested me that I had to write like a report on throughout the entire semester. It was okay. I'm not autistic myself, but I have heard from autistic people that the representation in this book is not the best. It depicts Nicholas as, I think that was his name. I could be wrong. It depicts Nicholas as having zero empathy rather than experiencing empathy different. Makes him seem more like a sociopath than an autistic kid. Autistic people aren't sociopaths, they just experience things differently. Forget what my thesis was. I did get a good grade, but my thesis was less focusing on the autistic representation and more on the things that the book did get right. How fast abuse can develop in torn families. Generational stuff. There was obviously some generational stuff going on in Nicholas's family. It's kind of a heavy read, so definitely look up your trigger warnings, but also I feel like there are books with better autistic representation if you want to read a book with an autistic main character. I did really enjoy the writing style in this book though, so there is that. Number 44, we got another Hannibal book. We got Red Dragon. I feel like it's a little outdated, so I like the Hannibal series, but the books are fun. I'm not gonna lie, the books are fun, but this is not Silence of the Lambs. This is not Hannibal. Number 43, we got Red Glass. This is a YA or middle grade. Actually, no. This is probably YA. It kind of does touch on some mature themes. This is a local author, and I got this book years ago, and it's signed. I'm covering my birth name, but it is signed, so I remember reading this and just having fun. Like, the writing is good, the story is good. There's nothing wrong with this book, really. It ended up being, like, a lot better than I thought it was gonna be, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not special. And I read it so many years later, and I wish I would have read this when I was younger, but I didn't. This would have been an amazing thing to read when I was young. I feel like I was a little too old when I got to it, but it was really good for what it is. Number 42, we got Nobody, Somebody, Anybody. I was expecting to like this book a lot more than I did. What was that ending? That was so anticlimactic. Just finished reading my Year of Rest and Relaxation. I was expecting something more like that. I thought it was going to be more psychological than it was, so that's that. The main character obviously had anxiety. If there was one person to throw her under the bus, it was herself. She was her biggest problem. I forget her name. Amy? Amy, I love you. Nobody, somebody, anybody was like, okay, not blown away, but it was pretty good. Number 41, we have The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. I listened to this on audiobook. I loved the writing style. I loved the atmosphere. The characters were like, okay. It did have its issues. Like, I did get bored. Things got a little predictable, a little bit jumbled near the end. But other than that, this book was pretty awesome. If you want vibes, read this book. Number 40, we got Lolita. I did annotate this. I was gonna do a video on it, but I ended up not doing that because the conversation surrounding this book, it's a dark one. It's a hard read. I'm not gonna lie. So it's low on my list, but it's not the very bottom because I feel like there is some valuable conversations to have surrounding this book. Number 39, we got Nothing to Envy. It's marketed as a nonfiction, but as I was reading reviews from people who are a little bit more educated on this subject than I am, some people were like, the author exaggerates the stories and it was all secondhand. Who can say that other than the people whose stories these are? But I definitely do see how she probably did add things in because I'm like, how the fuck would you know that? All things considered, the writing was okay. It kind of read like a textbook, but it also kind of read like fiction. It's hard to explain. It's one of those books that you have to read to really know what I'm talking about. There are other books that are better than this one surrounding this subject, and I definitely did add those to my TBR because I would rather read those books than something that some people are not feeling very good about. Number 38, we got The Drawing of the Three. I liked The Wastelands better. I liked The Gunslinger better. Those are the only other two I've read in this series, so we'll see. But I feel like there was just a lot of setup. I love Eddie. I fucking love you, Eddie. And I listened to this one partially on audio. I don't remember too much about this book other than the, what were they called? The Lobstrosities. I remember the Lobstrosities because I remember there was a scene where one of Eddie's ops like got eaten by the Lobstrosities, and I was like, oh fuck, that's fucking horrible. That was a really strong scene in this book. And then like trekking across the desert. It is one of the setup books, and it's a good one for what it is. Number 37, we got Friends Like These. I don't remember too much about this book other than the plot twist being like somewhat predictable. I guessed half of it, but like there was half of it that like I wouldn't have been able to guess. So I did appreciate that, but I did predict like this book. And I remember there were some really interesting chapters that you don't know like what they are until the end and it's like revealed. It almost seems like the characters in the book have like a stalker. I feel like there are a lot of books like this on the market, but the writing, I remember, oh my god, wait. The writing I do remember was really good. Definitely some quotable stuff. It's pretty good. Number 36, Lilith. This is a retelling of the story of Lilith. I'm not going to sit here and retell it for you, so if you're interested, you can look it up. I want to read pretty much every religious text, even if I completely disagree with it, because I'm the type of person that will read something just to be like, yeah, I read that and this is my opinion. I'm an opinionated person. I am super interested in anything religious. Lilith is a figure that does stick out to me. She is very important to the conversation surrounding the relationship between man and woman, because it's all metaphors, in my personal opinion. And you just follow her through like hundreds of years. I feel like if one doesn't know the story surrounding it, it's not a very interesting read, but for me it was interesting just because I recognized a lot of things. Number 35, we got Wuthering Heights. This was a reread. This used to be my favorite book in like 2021. I hadn't read as much as I have now, so of course it was my favorite book because it was one of the best books I had read at the time. I reread it. It was good. It wasn't as good as I remember. I did annotate it just because the period in my life where this was my favorite book and I was rereading it all the fucking time was a notable one for me. It kind of did bring me back, give me a little bit of nostalgia. Love you. Moving on. Number 34, we have The Mouse on the Mile. The Green Mile is a 5-star series for me. I fucking love these books. I think The Green Mile is my favorite series, just because it's that special to me. The only reason why it's like low on the list, kind of, not really, but kind of, is because this is my least favorite in the series, not because it's bad. I like every single one of these books. I don't think I rated one lower than 3 stars. I think this one had the least amount of plot in it. Compared to the other books in the series, it's okay. Number 33, we got Notes from a Dead House. This is not my favorite, but it's still good. It is a heavy read, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of sad, depressing. This book is fucking depressing. I got through it pretty fast, if I'm remembering correctly, so I don't really remember a lot from it. All I do remember is the vibe. Like, there was something with the dog that I thought was like, oh my god, I'm gonna cry. That's about all I have to say about this one. Number 32, we have another Green Mile book. This is the first one. Also, I do know that there is an edition of all of them bound up, but I do like the little ones. I like these covers a lot. I mostly bought the separate ones for the Night Journey cover because that is one of the best book covers ever. And it is such a shame. It is such a shame that all these editions got bound up into one, and that's what they sell with like that horrible cover that doesn't even match the vibe of anything. These covers are fucking awesome. So that's why I have like the little one. I kind of went on a tangent there. This is the first book. All I remember is that this sets up the crime that Coffee was accused of. So it's a very depressing book. Number 31, this one's a self-published. We got Solita. This is definitely better than some of the other self-published stuff I've read, so love you. Love this fucking cover. Ugh, I love this cover. I'm a self-published author myself, and this book, it's not my thing, but I still read it because, again, I love self-published authors. Not my thing, but I can appreciate it because it was that good. I do recommend if you like gothic romance, rain and mansions thrown in there. Love it. Number 30, we have Devout, an anthology of angels. I love anthologies because I can read them in an afternoon and feel like I just consumed so much. And I like this one in particular. What is very unfortunate is there is an author, you probably know what I'm talking about, Fidus Moon. Do you know what I'm talking about? If you don't know, Fidus Moon faked being a person of color. It's not funny. It isn't funny. That's racism. So, Fidus Moon, I hate you. The editor of this anthology removed Fidus Moon from the project, so you can still purchase Devout and not have to, I guess, support Fidus Moon. I'm specifically talking about queer people who left religion. This anthology is awesome. There's just so much here. I have all these bookmarks of the ones I like that I go back and reread. Something like this was made for people like me who are very interested in religion but are very critical of it as well and kind of poke fun at it. This turns all of that into art, except for Fidus Moon. Anyway, moving on. Number 29, we got the Metamorphosis, falling back into that human turning into an animal or like a thing for like symbolic effect, if you will. And this is like the king of it. Of course it was good. I love Franz Kafka. I love his prose. He's very like tormented. I remember feeling so bad for Gregor. I feel like this should connect with anyone. Read Metamorphosis. It's short. And I think it's one of those things that everyone should read. So just read it. Number 28, we got another self-pub. Sacrilege! This one was more heavy on the romance than I thought it was gonna be. The atmosphere was awesome. I love the world. I love the little village. I love the main character! What was her name? Oh my god. Emily! Emily. I don't know, I just saw a name and said it. If her name was Emily, that's her name. Love her. Her little man was fun too. They were cute. If you do read it, listen to Safe and Sound by Taylor Swift while you do it. Because if this book was a song, it's that one. Number 27 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. It's another classic that I think everyone should read. This is like the founding father of the sci-fi genre. What else do I have to say about this book that I didn't say in my book tag? So I'm not boring y'all with like being like a broken record. I am gonna note, slow start. It has a slow start, but once you get into it, Number 26 is my second favorite in the Hannibal series, which is Silence of the Lambs. I liked this one because it was the most realistic out of any of the books, and it was also somewhat had queer representation. The word trans is explicitly used. The phrase transsexual is used, which is an outdated phrase, but it's kind of debatable whether the character was trans or not. But I don't know, the representation is a little muddy because it was written by a cis man. Also, it's an older book, but trans people are talked about and discussed in this book. As a trans person, I wasn't offended, but I did feel like, oh yeah, it's outdated, whatever. But I'm not a trans woman. I'm not gonna speak for trans women. If you're a trans woman, let me know what you thought of Silence of the Lambs in the comments, because I'm actually curious what trans women think about this book. But when I'm looking at it away from that, as a crime novel, I like it. Number 25, Stealing Athena. Love it. Hamnet was one of my 5 stars in 2023. This book reminded me of Hamnet. Oh, this book reminded me of Hamnet. You're following 2 characters. You're following Mary and you're following Aspasia. Aspasia? I don't know how to say her name, guys. I'm sorry. I know these are real people. But you're following them from their split perspective. 2 different time periods, but 2 women experiencing very similar stories. I love a thought-provoking read, and that's what Stealing Athena was. If you liked Hamnet, fucking read this book. It's great. Number 24, we have Fahrenheit 451. This was another book that surprised me. Prose. And it's short. If you like beautiful, stunning prose, read this. The first sentence is, "It was a pleasure to burn." That's telling enough. Read this. If I say to read the fucking book, read the book. Number 23 is Coffee's Hands, another Green Mile book. I don't remember specifically what happened in this one, but I did have a higher rating of it in my reading journal than I did with the other two. They kind of do all jumbled together, so I can't specifically place like what happened in which book. I just remember what happened in all of them overall, but it did have a higher rating than the other two. So actually, let me just like look at it real fast. Oh, I think this is the book where Coffee reveals his like abilities, like when he brings the mouse back to life. I could be wrong. If you know, let me know. Number 22, number 22, White Knights. It was great. I love the prose in this. This is a beautiful book. Tortured romantic, but make it Dostoevsky. Number 21, and then we'll get into the top 20. Number 21 is The Gunslinger. This book feels like every single A7X song if they were all playing at once. And I love A7X. You can't see it, but there's a giant tapestry right here. I know every single song. I like every single song, which is crazy. If they wrote it, I like it. Anyway, I'm not going to sit here and talk about Avenged Sevenfold. I'm going to sit here and talk about books. I love Roland. In this book, you're like, who is this guy? Like, he's so mysterious in this book, and I love it. Because once you actually do get to know Roland and you look back on The Gunslinger, you're like, that's kind of funny. This is an amazing setup for a series. Amazing. I love the atmosphere. Okay, top 20 of 2024. Consider this official. Number 20, Coraline. Out of any, like, children's book I've read, this one's the best. This is how you appeal to more than just a child audience. There's so much here. I will even venture to say that there's too much here for a child to understand. There's a lot here. I don't like Neil Gaiman. How do you say his name? I heard he did some horrible things to some woman. So I don't support that. But this was a good book, guys. This was a really good book. Number 19, we have Red Rising. I'm not done with Red Rising yet. I'm only 2 books in. It is one of my favorite series. I don't know if it's appropriate to say that, being only 2 books in, because there are 6 books. I love Darrow. Fuck, I love Darrow. I am not gonna rant about Darrow. I've done that too many times. I feel like the only reason why this isn't higher on my list is because I was slumping while reading this. But it was still strong. I gave it 4 stars, but it's not as good as Golden Sun. I feel like most people will agree with me, right? Number 18, we have Babel. Now look at this. Look at this and tell me. Actually, don't tell me anything. Don't tell me shit. I love this book. I swear to God, if one more person is like, ooh, dark academia, and leave it at that, I'm gonna reach through the screen and pull your hair. And it'll be like a tiny little strand, so it'll hurt 10 times worse. There's so much more here. Ugh! The characters. Fuck. The relationships. The prose, the storytelling, the footnotes provided. Why are we reducing this book? The conversation surrounding racism. Hello? It took me a while to get through Babel just because of the sheer length, and I still think about the end. Moving on. Number 17 is one I just finished. Later by the Stephen King. I love you, Jamie. Come to my house. His narration is my favorite thing ever. Jamie is one of the coolest narrators. If I would have made my book tag after I finished Later, I think Darrow and Jamie would have been in my favorite main characters rather than Darrow and Coraline, because I love you, Jamie. And I listened to Later on audio, and the audiobook for this book is, in my opinion, the only way to consume it. The narrator's voice is literally angelic. It's like that type of masculinity that I strive to be, okay? I'll probably reread it. I will reread this book eventually. I might up my rating, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, this book is amazing. It's one of my favorite Stephen King books, which is crazy to say. I feel like some people don't like this book as much as I do, and I'm like, why? Why don't you like this book? Moving on. Another Stephen King book, we got The Wastelands in number 16. The Wastelands is higher than The Gunslinger and The Drawing of the Three for me because I think that the plot is a lot better in this book. Like, the first 2 were setting up. This one is when you jump into the action and start, like, actually reading shit. I love the idea of the train near the end. And I did like the ending of this book because it made me want to read it made me want to read the next book in the series, like, right away. Yahoo! And I love Jake's return. The Wastelands was really good. Number 15, we got my favorite book in the Hannibal series, which is Hannibal. I have talked a lot about this book because I think it's a hilarious book. I don't know if that was the intention. Oh, this book is almost trying too hard to be like crazy and spooky to the point where it's hilarious. But I've talked so much about it that I'm just gonna like, if I'm gonna be brief. This book is funny. I got through it so fast. It's the main reason why I gave the series as a whole like a 3.5 or 3.75 series rating. Like this book was most of it. Number 15. This one, considering what it is, it's very high up, but there's a lot of intrigue for me surrounding this book. This is The Resurrectionist. This is like written in a non-fiction style, but it is like it's straight up like fantasy. I wish there was like more to this. The art is the reason why this book was published, and I think a story was written around the art. I think that's how it went. I put this in my Goodreads review of this book, where I was like, the story here is so awesome that I want other books. Like, I want more. The characters were so good. Like, why were the characters so fucking good? But like, I like never got into their head. For what this is, it's impressive. Like, this is impressive. Let me show you. Hold on, there's like some really cool pages with mermaids. Mermaids! If that doesn't convince you to read this, I don't know what will. If I was behind this, I'd be like, I'm gonna write another one where it's Black's journal and you get to read the whole journal. Ooh, that would be so good. I feel like my rating came more out of like potential than it did like the thing itself, but the thing itself is really good. This at its base is amazing. It's like dark but whimsical. Yeah. Number 13, we have Despair. I bought this on my birthday. I feel like we've moved. Yeah, we've moved for sure. I don't know when that happened. I'm sorry. I picked this book up because I like Nabokov's prose in Lolita, but I wanted to be able to enjoy what I was reading, like, and admire the prose without all the extra shit. So I bought this book just so I could experience his prose without that specific story that I was reading. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Like, I lightly annotated it. I remember I was reading this at my desk one night and I was just having, I like binged it. I was so into this. It was quirky. I hate using that word. I hate using that word. I liked how witty and just like quirky it was. Like this is fun. Number 12, we got The Bad Death of Edward Delacroix. When Edward died, I like felt that with Paul. Okay, like, and Edward was the one who like loved the mouse and he like trained the mouse. Him and the mouse, all this buildup. And then he dies. It's like, holy shit. And then the mouse is just like the mouse. Oh my god, it's all coming back to me. Number 11, and then we'll get into the top 10. In the Garden of Spite. I talked about this in my book tag as well, and I feel like I don't want to like repeat myself a ton. Also because this was in my blind date with a book video as well, so I don't want to like literally just repeat myself every time I bring up this book on a video. This is the type of book that I'll recommend to anyone. I love this book. I love this book. I do remember it slows down, but then it picks right back up. That was the calm before the storm, okay? The fact that it slowed down was nice. I feel like I've literally, oh my god, I've been recording this for almost 2 hours. Holy shit, this is gonna be a bitch to edit. Okay, it's okay. It's fine. Number 10, when I finished literally on the last day of 2024, Kings of the Wild. Whew. This was one of those books, kind of like the Stormlight Archive and Red Rising for me. That's how I know I really like a book. Is if I, number 1, go on Pinterest, search up fan art. There was not a ton, but there was enough. Number 2, I look into the author and like interviews with him. Number 3, I watch for like discussions about the book. And number 4, I think about the book and I think about the characters. Moog, Larkspur, Jane. Slow hand. Kings of the Wild is good. I am a music nerd. I love music. When you like a genre, like metal, and there's such a culture surrounding it, you of course involve yourself in that culture. One of the main things is know where your music is coming from and the backstory behind your music. I watched Daniel Green's interview with the author, and he was talking about how this book is based off of like bands in the 70s and 80s. I picked up on that as I was reading. I just needed that confirmation. Yes, you can tell. You can tell, especially if you know the references. And I like fantasy. I like this vibe. What I was shocked about when I was watching other people's opinions on this book, no one likes Larkspur? What? Guys? Okay, she's a baddie with a capital B. I love Larkspur. But you know who I like even more? Jane. Favorite character. Oh, Jane, I need you. I will most certainly be reading the second book. Oh, most certainly. Moving on. Number 9, and I hate to do this, but we're gonna talk about it. Number 9, we got my own book. Okay, and hear me out. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, this is one of my top reads of the year. I'm not gonna sit here though and not include it. I read this book the entire way through, probably 30 times this year, so I'm not gonna not include it in my rankings. Now, you may be wondering, why didn't you put it at number 1? This is your own book. The reason why I didn't put it at number 1 is because as an author and as a reader, I look up to authors. I look up to books that I think are really amazing. I'm not saying my book is anything like them, my writing is anything like them, but like, as an artist, I am literally just the product of what other artists have made. Other people have obviously influenced me. That's why Blackened is not at number 1. But when this dropped on December 15th, that was the best day of my life. I worked on this book for 3.5 years. I have dedicated every single brain cell I am capable of dedicating to Blackened. Blackened is my best friend. Blackened is me. Blackened, we are like this. Okay? Sure, it's my own book. Whatever. It's going in my wrap up. Amazon link will be in the description. If you want to go read Blackened, it's there. It is there. Number 8. Ooh. Ending, 10 out of 10. Darrow, 10 out of 10. That fight between Darrow and what's his face? 10 out of 10. Severo, 10 out of 10. I want to lick Darrow. I want to lick him. I like chicks, but I'm a little bit attracted to Darrow. Ooh, he's the man. I want to lick him, and not out of attraction. I want to lick him to know what he tastes like. I would imagine he's like licking a battery. Darrow would be licking a battery. Number 7, I have a physical copy of this book coming in the mail, so I wish I could hold it up because it's just that good. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I have such fond memories of this book. Finding a 5-star on one of my favorite trips I've ever taken in my entire life. It was like all of it tied up in a beautiful bow. And I can't have any bad memories from that trip. Some people don't find it funny, but I'm not among those people. This book is fucking hilarious. I don't care what you say. Oh, also, I think it's worth mentioning. From The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy up is all my 5 stars this year. So every book from now on, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was 5 stars. Every book now, from here to number 1 is 5 stars. Oh my god, I didn't even realize this when I was ranking them, but number 6 is Six of Crows. I didn't read anything else, like, in this, like, world, because I know there are, like, the Shadow and Bone trilogy you're supposed to read before you read Six of Crows, but I say, don't read that, read this instead. I haven't read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but I've heard that it's not as good as Six of Crows, and this is the bread and butter of this author. Like, this is her prime, and it's that good. Six of Crows was hard for me. I had such an interesting experience with you. We're best friends now, but we used to be enemies. We're like enemies to lovers, actually. I almost DNF'd this book, by the way. It is crazy. How the fuck did I almost DNF this book but still give it a 5 stars? I had to go back and really, like, sink it in. Like, I had to sink in what I was reading. Soak up. I had to really soak up what I was reading. This is how you write characters. They just jump off the page. The second book was better, but this is still a 5 stars. That's how good the second book was, but we'll get there. Top 5. Number 5, we got Coffee on the Mile. Boom. Night Journey is my favorite, but Coffee on the Mile is my second favorite because there's a lot of substance here compared to the other ones. Like, this one's bigger than the other ones. The mouse comes back to the retirement home that Paul is at by the time he's at this point in his life where he's writing these. Amazing conclusion to everything. Number 4, Night Journey. This one is above Coffee on the Mile because I love the, like, heist that they, not heist, how they, like, sneak him out of the prison. Like, that is so funny. He's on death row, dude. And they, like, sneak him out. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. This is a stunning book. And the cover, that's the coolest cover ever. Okay, now we're in the top 3. Crooked Kingdom is my 3rd book of 2024. I like Crooked Kingdom more than I like Six of Crows because I didn't almost DNF this one. And also, I was already attached to the characters and I feel like they're developed a lot more in this book. And even Timothy Chalamet Willy Wonka gets a redemption for me in this book. I don't like him still, but I do understand him. I didn't understand him in the first book, so he pissed me off. But in this book, he pisses me off but I understand him. Matthias. Oh my god, I posted a whole rant on TikTok when I finished this book. From an author perspective, I have a lot of opinions. Guys, it's so good. Like, the story and the characters are so good that I rated these 5 stars. I want to push that I rated these books 5 stars. I feel so passionately about these books because they are so unique to me. But from an author perspective, the choice made at the end of the book, I was like, okay. And I'm not gonna get into it. Number 2, I have been torn between 1 and 2 for a while now. But when I was finally doing my ranking, I settled. Crane Husband is number 2. Only because there's less substance. This book emotionally impacted me more than number 1 did. And I connect with it so much. I really do. Like, I love this book. And I will be rereading it. I will be annotating it. When I originally read it, I had a library book. And I remember when I still had the library book, I placed an order for a physical copy because I needed it and I needed to annotate it. And it's only 120 pages. I read it in 2 hours. Know what you're reading. Know what you're getting yourself into before you read this book. I feel like I don't even need to talk. I just need to do this. And just feel the words. I love The Crane Husband. And number 1, the big winner of 2024. This is the winner. This is the best book I read all year. The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Do I need to say why this is my favorite, or do you guys know? I guess I do need to explain myself because it is number 1. The Stormlight Archive is, I know, going to be one of my favorite series. I'm on the 2nd book and I already love it. For me, I really don't like long books. This book is 1,000 pages, by the way. I don't like long books, and I always have to say, if a book is over 800 pages, by the end of it, I'm always saying, this book could have been 800 pages shorter. This had to be 1,000 pages. This had to be. I don't know if it's like a personal taste. Like, I was like, oh my god, I love these characters so much, I need more. Like, I love The Way of Kings. I love this book, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series, genuinely. I want to be done with, I want to skip the reading and just have them up here. Okay, I have been filming for 2 hours. This is great. That is every book I read in the year 2024, ranked from worst to best. Reading got me through a lot this year, guys. I feel like one of the reasons why it was such a good year for reading is because it was a bad year. Other things. I'm gonna end this video by saying I love reading. I will see y'all when I see y'all. Peace.